morning sun spilled through the glass walls of Hawthorne Tower, a 40-story monument of money, ambition, and ego. Inside the sleek marble lobby, people moved like a stream of suits and designer heels, each person more important than the next. And in the middle of that rush, quietly invisible, Maria Lopez pushed her cleaning cart across the polished floor. Her hands were rough, her uniform faded, but her movements were graceful, practiced. She knew every inch of this building, every smudge, every creak, every corner no one else noticed. "Careful, ma'am," said the front desk guard politely as Maria mopped near the elevators. She smiled softly. "Thank you, James." Most people didn't even know her name. But Maria remembered everyone's, the security staff, the interns, even the delivery drivers. She'd been here longer than anyone realized. Upstairs, on the 40th floor, CEO Daniel Hawthorne was giving his weekly address. Tall, sharp, and smugly confident, Daniel had built his reputation on control. "In business," he said to his board, "we move fast, we move bold, and we don't stop to clean up small messes. We hire people for that." Laughter rippled through the room. Downstairs, Maria quietly changed the trash bags in the employee lounge. Later that day, Daniel stormed into the lobby, phone to his ear. "I don't care how you do it," he barked. "Just get me that expansion lease finalized. We're not losing another week on this deal." The moment he hung up, he noticed Maria wiping a coffee spill near the elevators. His tone softened only slightly. "You might want to finish that up faster. We've got investors coming." Maria looked up with calm eyes. "Of course, sir." He walked past without a thank you. But for just a second before the elevator doors closed, she allowed herself a small smile. Because what Daniel didn't know was this. The very lease he was fighting to secure ran directly through her hands. That evening, Maria left the building long after everyone else had gone home. The city lights painted golden streaks across the wet streets. She took the subway 2 stops, then walked to a small office tucked between a bakery and a law firm. The sign above the door read, "Lopez Realty Holdings, LLC." Inside, the space was modest but professional. A few framed certificates hung behind the desk, her desk. She removed her gloves, washed her hands, and opened her laptop. On the screen was a set of documents labeled, "Lease Agreement Hawthorne Tower, Renewal Pending." She scrolled through the file, her expression unreadable. Daniel Hawthorne's company had been late on 3 payments, and the renewal clause was still unsigned. Her phone buzzed. A message from her assistant, Chloe. "The CEO called again. Wants to finalize the lease tomorrow. Should I schedule it?" Maria typed back, "Yes, let's see how he behaves in person." She leaned back in her chair, staring out at the city skyline. Most people thought she was just a cleaning lady, an old woman trying to make ends meet. But she owned property all over downtown. Her late husband, an architect, had built several of these towers decades ago. When he passed, she quietly managed the portfolio under her maiden name, Lopez. No one ever asked, and she never felt the need to explain. She smiled faintly, remembering her husband's favorite quote, "The world only respects those it notices, until the unnoticed start owning it." The next morning, the building was buzzing. Rumor had it that a major investor was visiting, and Daniel wanted everything perfect. He walked through the lobby, pointing at details as if the entire world belonged to him. "Make sure the windows shine," he snapped at a junior employee. "And where's that cleaning woman?" The floors streaked. Maria was already there, polishing the marble. "Almost done, sir," she said politely. Daniel glanced at her, then muttered, "Honestly, we should contract a better janitorial service. This building deserves professionals." The receptionist winced slightly, but said nothing. Maria didn't respond. She simply nodded and moved on, her mop gliding across the floor with steady grace. If Daniel had looked closer, he might have noticed the quiet confidence in her eyes. But he didn't. He was too busy preparing for the meeting that would change his future, though not in the way he imagined. At 11 a.m., Daniel walked into the conference room on the top floor. His team was ready, documents stacked neatly, presentation slides glowing on the big screen. "Today's the day," he said. "We close this lease and secure our expansion." A few minutes later, the assistant knocked. "Sir, the representative from Lopez Realty is here." Daniel straightened his tie. "Finally, send him in." The door opened, but it wasn't a him. It was Maria, still in her uniform, holding a leather folder and wearing that same calm, unreadable expression. The entire room fell silent. Daniel blinked. What is this? Where's your boss?" Maria stepped forward and placed the folder on the table. "I am the boss, Mr. Hawthorne." For a few seconds, no one moved. The silence was louder than any sound. Then she smiled gently. "Shall we discuss your lease?" For a few seconds, the boardroom was frozen. You could have heard the air conditioning hum. Daniel Hawthorne blinked, completely thrown off. You're the cleaning staff." His voice cracked slightly, as though saying it louder would make it true. Maria smiled politely and set her folder down. "That's correct, Mr. Hawthorne. I manage the building's janitorial team, and I also manage its lease on behalf of Lopez Realty Holdings." The executives exchanged uneasy glances. Daniel tried to compose himself. "This is some kind of mistake. I'm supposed to be meeting with your employer, not the maintenance crew." Maria didn't flinch. "No mistake, sir. My company owns this property, the building you work in, the offices you lease, the parking lot your luxury car sits on." Laughter from Daniel's marketing director died in his throat. Daniel forced a chuckle, trying to regain control. "All right, this is amusing. You'll forgive me, Ms. Lopez, but I'm a little pressed for time. Perhaps we can continue this charade later, and you can fetch whoever's actually in charge." Maria looked him straight in the eye. Her tone was soft, but steady. "If I fetch the person in charge, Mr. Hawthorne, you'll be looking at me again." Daniel's face reddened. He turned to his assistant. "Get security up here. This is ridiculous." Before the assistant could move, Maria calmly opened her folder and slid a document across the table. "I wouldn't do that if I were you." Daniel frowned. "And why not?" "Because your current lease expires in 3 days," she said, her voice calm as water. "And you've already missed your renewal window." The executives all froze. "What?" "Section 5, subsection D," Maria continued. "Your payment delays last quarter voided your automatic renewal clause. Legally, Lopez Realty could reclaim the property on Monday morning." Daniel's confident smirk melted away. He flipped through the document in disbelief. It was the full contract, stamped, signed, and dated. He looked up. "That can't be right." "Oh, it's right," Maria replied. "I drafted it myself." One of the board members coughed awkwardly. Another began typing furiously on a tablet. Daniel leaned back, trying to regain composure. "So what are you saying? That you plan to evict us? After all the improvements we've made to this building?" Maria tilted her head slightly. "Improvements? You mean the executive lounge on the 40th floor where your staff aren't allowed? Or the marble fountains you installed while your custodial team went 2 months without overtime pay?" That stung. Daniel's jaw tightened. "You've built a company that looks good on the outside," she continued. "But you forgot that buildings, like people, crumble from neglect at the foundation." For the first time in his career, Daniel had no words. When the meeting ended, the silence in the elevator ride down was suffocating. Daniel's executives stared straight ahead, no one daring to speak. In the lobby, Maria's cleaning crew was working, quietly, efficiently, invisible as always. She passed them with a small nod, her uniform blending right back into their world. Daniel watched her walk away, torn between disbelief and anger. He stormed into his office, slammed the door, and collapsed into his chair. The city skyline stretched before him, golden in the afternoon sun. For years, he'd looked down from this window proud of how much he'd built. Now he wasn't sure how much of it he actually owned. That evening he called his lawyer. "She can't do this, right?" he snapped. "She can't just evict us because of one missed payment." The lawyer sighed on the other end. "Technically, she can. The contract language is airtight. Whoever drafted it knew what they were doing." Daniel rubbed his forehead. "So what are my options?" "You could renegotiate. But given the clause, she has the upper hand. She could triple your rent if she wanted to." "Triple?" Daniel muttered. "She's within her rights." Daniel hung up the phone, staring at the documents spread across his desk. A cleaning woman, the same one he'd barely acknowledged for years, now controlled the fate of his company's headquarters, and she didn't even raise her voice. Meanwhile, downstairs in the staff lounge, Maria was having coffee with her assistant, Chloe. "You really showed him today," Chloe said, smiling. Maria stirred her coffee gently. "No, I just reminded him that power isn't loud. It's quiet. It's knowing when to speak." "You're really going to renegotiate with him?" Chloe asked. Maria nodded. "Yes, but not for money." "What then?" Maria looked thoughtful. "Respect. For every person in this building who's been treated like they don't matter." Chloe smiled. "You're not just the landlord, are you?" Maria chuckled softly. "I'm a janitor with a purpose." The next morning, an email landed in Daniel's inbox from Lopez Realty Holdings. Subject: Meeting Proposal Lease Negotiation. "Dear Mr. Hawthorne, we're willing to discuss a new lease agreement on Monday morning. Please ensure your full executive team is present. Bring your humility, it might be your most valuable asset this time. Warm regards, Maria Lopez, Principal Owner, Lopez Realty Holdings." Daniel read the message twice, then leaned back in his chair, exhaling slowly. For the first time in his life, he wasn't the man with the upper hand. He was the one being called to the table. And somewhere deep inside, past the pride, the anger, the disbelief, a small, reluctant voice whispered that maybe, just maybe, he deserved this lesson. Monday morning arrived with the kind of heavy silence that only came before a storm. The 40th floor of Hawthorne Enterprises was spotless. Floors gleaming, air fragrant, everything in perfect order. Yet the tension in the air was thick enough to cut. Daniel Hawthorne sat at the head of the long glass table, his executives lined up beside him. No one dared speak. The clock ticked loudly, every second pulling them closer to a meeting no one wanted but everyone feared. At exactly 9 a.m., the elevator chimed. Maria Lopez stepped out, not in her janitor's uniform this time, but in a simple, elegant navy blue dress. Her posture was calm, her steps measured. She didn't carry arrogance. She carried certainty. A brief hush fell over the room. For the first time, everyone saw her differently. "Ms. Lopez," Daniel said, standing up stiffly. "Thank you for coming." Maria smiled. "It's your building, Mr. Hawthorne. For now." A few of the executives coughed, hiding nervous smiles. She took a seat at the far end of the table, placing a small leather folder in front of her. The same kind she'd brought the first day, but this time embossed with gold initials. Emil. Daniel cleared his throat. "Before we begin, let me just say, what happened last week was unexpected. You've made your point, but surely we can find a reasonable agreement here." Maria nodded, calm and professional. "I agree. I believe every building runs better when both sides understand each other." "Excellent," Daniel said quickly, relief in his voice. "So let's talk numbers. What's your price?" "I'm prepared to be flexible." Maria raised a hand gently. "Not so fast. Before we talk about numbers, I want to talk about people." Daniel blinked. "People?" "Yes, the people who make this building run. The ones you walk past every day without seeing." She opened her folder and slid a thin document across the table. "That's my offer." Daniel frowned and scanned the paper. His brows furrowed. This isn't a lease agreement. No, Maria said softly. It's a policy proposal. If you want to stay in this building, you'll implement it. He looked down again, reading aloud. Effective immediately, all custodial and maintenance staff of Hawthorne Enterprises shall receive wage parity with industry standards, paid health benefits, and a written acknowledgement in every company meeting for their contribution to building operations. He looked up, incredulous. You're serious? Very, Maria replied. And there's more. She nodded to her assistant, Chloe, who handed out copies to the rest of the board. Daniel kept reading. Additionally, all senior executives will participate in quarterly ground floor days, working alongside building staff to understand operational realities. Failure to comply will result in non-renewal of the corporate lease and immediate property repossession. Daniel stared at her. You can't be serious. You're forcing my executives to clean floors. I'm asking you to see the people who clean them, Maria corrected gently. This is absurd, he snapped. We're a Fortune 500 company, not a social experiment. Maria leaned forward slightly, her calm unbroken. And yet, your company relies on janitors, maintenance workers, delivery staff, all of whom you've ignored. Tell me, Mr. Hawthorne, who cleans the glass that reflects your success? Daniel froze. The room went quiet again. She continued, voice steady but sharp. When people like me stop doing our jobs, your world stops running. You think leadership is about being seen, but real leadership is about seeing others. A murmur spread through the board members. For the first time, Daniel saw some of them nodding, quietly agreeing. He sat back, trying to process. You're asking me to rewrite how my company operates, just to keep this building? Maria met his eyes. No, Mr. Hawthorne. I'm asking you to remember what builds one. The silence stretched until Daniel finally spoke, his tone lower now. And if I refuse? Maria stood up slowly. Then you'll have 72 hours to vacate. I already have 2 companies waiting for this space, both with cleaner ethics and cleaner floors. She gathered her papers, turned, and started toward the door. Daniel's hand shot out instinctively. Wait! She stopped, turning just enough to meet his eyes. For a long moment he said nothing. Then finally the words came, rough, unfamiliar, honest. Tell me, if I agree to your terms, would you consider renewing the lease long-term? Her expression softened. That depends on whether you follow the spirit of the agreement, not just the letter. He nodded slowly. You have my word. Maria gave a faint smile. Then we'll see if that word means anything. Later that day, after she left, Daniel sat alone in his office, staring at the city skyline. He thought about all the faces he'd ignored. The woman who handed him coffee, the man who vacuumed the carpets, the security guard who greeted him every morning. For the first time, he realized how many invisible hands had built the empire he claimed to lead. He buzzed his intercom. James, send me the full list of maintenance and cleaning staff working in this building. His assistant hesitated. Sir, you heard me, and schedule a meeting. Today. All of them. Downstairs, Maria was packing up her cart when James approached. Ms. Lopez, he said with a grin. Word is, the CEO wants to talk to the cleaning crew. Maria smiled knowingly. Oh? What for? James chuckled. He says he's got new policies to announce. Maria's eyes twinkled. Then I suppose I'll have to see how my tenant performs. She pushed her cart down the hall, sunlight streaming through the tall glass windows, her reflection blending into the shine she helped create. Because sometimes power isn't loud. Sometimes it's quiet, patient, and holding the keys to the very floor others walk on. 3 days later, Hawthorne Enterprises didn't feel like the same company. The marble floors were still shiny, the glass walls still spotless, but something deeper had shifted. The whispers started early that morning. Did you hear the CEO's bringing the cleaning crew into the boardroom? Is it for layoffs? No, I heard it's some kind of new policy. By 9 a.m., every staff member, from executives to janitors, stood in the 10th floor auditorium. It was the first time the entire building had gathered in one place. Normally, the people in suits and the people in uniforms never even saw each other. Daniel Hawthorne stood at the podium. His posture was still upright, his voice still confident, but there was a new weight in his tone. "Good morning," he began. "I've called everyone here today because this company runs on something we've all forgotten." He paused, scanning the crowd. His gaze fell on Maria, standing near the back, hands folded over her cart handle. "Respect," he said simply. "That's what we've lost, and it's what we're going to rebuild." The room was dead silent. Daniel continued, "Starting today, we're implementing new staff programs. Better pay for maintenance and custodial workers, health coverage, flexible schedules, and once every quarter." He hesitated, the corners of his mouth twitching into a small, humble smile. "Every senior executive will spend one day working alongside the people who keep this building running." A few stunned murmurs spread through the room. One executive actually whispered, "He's joking, right?" Daniel heard it. "No," he said firmly. "I'm not joking. Last week, I met someone who reminded me that leadership isn't measured by who you command, but by how you serve." All eyes turned toward Maria. She gave a small, approving nod, nothing more, but it was enough. By the following Friday, the new policy was in motion. At 7 a.m., the elevators opened to reveal something no one could have imagined a week ago. Executives in rolled-up sleeves, holding mops, cleaning windows, wiping desks. "Watch your grip, Mr. Anderson," Maria instructed kindly to a CFO struggling with a mop handle. "You're using too much water. You'll leave streaks." The CFO chuckled nervously. "I haven't mopped since college." "Then it's a good day to relearn," Maria replied with a smile. Across the hall, Daniel himself was replacing trash liners in the employee lounge. Cameras from internal communications recorded the moment, not for PR, but for documentation of ground floor day. One of the janitors, Luis, approached him. "Never thought I'd see the boss doing this." Daniel grinned faintly. "Neither did I." He tied off the bag, wiped his hands, and glanced around. "You know, this place feels different when you slow down enough to notice it." Luis nodded. "That's what we've been saying for years." Daniel chuckled. "Then I guess it's about time I listened." Meanwhile, in her modest office at Lopez Realty, Maria watched the internal footage on her tablet. Chloe, her assistant, peeked over her shoulder. "They're actually doing it," Chloe said, amazed. "Even the CEO." Maria smiled. "When people are forced to see each other on equal ground, the walls come down. Sometimes, humility cleans more than soap ever could." Chloe laughed. "You really didn't want more money from that deal?" Maria shook her head. "Money buys silence. Respect buys change." A week later, Daniel requested a private meeting with Maria, this time at her office. When he arrived, he looked different. No arrogance, no edge, just calm. "Ms. Lopez," he said as he entered. "Thank you for seeing me." She gestured for him to sit. "Of course. How's the cleaning going upstairs?" He chuckled softly. "Let's just say I have a newfound appreciation for microfiber cloths." Maria laughed. A gentle, genuine sound. "I'm glad to hear that." Daniel grew serious again. "I came here to apologize, not as a CEO, but as a man who forgot what it meant to look people in the eye. You were right. I saw titles, not worth. I mistook polish for power." Maria studied him for a moment. "And what do you see now?" He looked thoughtful. "That buildings aren't just built with steel and glass, they're built with hands, with people. And those people deserve to be seen." She nodded. "Then maybe you've learned the lesson my husband used to tell me. The foundation isn't the lowest part of the building. It's the strongest." Daniel smiled. I think I'd like to put that on a plaque in our lobby. Maria raised an eyebrow. Make sure you credit the janitor. He laughed quietly. Always. From that day forward, Hawthorne Enterprises changed. The new programs didn't just improve morale, they transformed the company's image. Client satisfaction went up. Turnover went down. And for the first time in years, employees across departments started greeting each other by name. Daniel started visiting the maintenance floor every morning, coffee in hand. The same people who used to avoid eye contact with him now waved as he passed. And every Friday at noon, he'd stop by the lobby, where Maria often worked with her team. One day he approached her cart. Ms. Lopez, I wanted you to see something. He handed her a sleek brochure. The front read, Hawthorne Enterprises X Lopez Realty, renewal signed. Maria opened it. Inside was the official renewal of the lease, this time signed under her full name, Maria Lopez, not as a faceless company but as a respected partner. She looked up at him, pleasantly surprised. You didn't have to do this. Daniel shook his head. Yes, I did. You gave me back something money can't buy, perspective. It's only right I return the favor with respect. She smiled warmly. Then maybe this building finally has the right tenants. That evening, long after the offices emptied, Maria walked through the quiet lobby. She paused by the marble wall near the main elevator. A new plaque gleamed there. In honor of those who keep our world clean and our foundation strong. Because greatness starts at ground level. Her eyes softened. She reached out, touching the plaque gently. For a woman who had once been invisible, her fingerprints were now part of the building's story. Not just on its floors, but in its heart. And for Daniel Hawthorne, humility had finally cleaned what pride had stained. 3 months passed. The building that once symbolized cold corporate power now hummed with a quieter, deeper kind of pride. The marble floors still shone, but this time, the reflection showed something different. Executives and janitors greeting each other like equals, coffee shared between departments, Real laughter echoing in the halls. The change hadn't come overnight. It had been slow, steady, earned, one respectful gesture at a time. And at the center of it all was the woman who'd started it, Maria Lopez. It was a crisp Friday morning when the email went out. Subject, all hands meeting. Important announcement. By 10 a.m., every employee had gathered in the main atrium. The sunlight poured in through the massive skylight above, casting a warm glow across hundreds of faces. At the front stood Daniel Hawthorne, this time not in a custom suit, but in a simple button-down and rolled-up sleeves. He looked out at the crowd, not down from a podium but standing among them. He began quietly. A few months ago, this company was running perfectly on paper, and terribly in spirit. A few chuckles rippled through the audience. Not mocking, but understanding. I thought success was about owning more, building higher, climbing faster, Daniel continued. Then someone reminded me that you can't stand tall if you've forgotten who holds you up. He paused, his voice steady but full of emotion. Today we honor that someone. He turned toward the entrance, and the crowd parted as Maria Lopez walked in, wearing her neatly pressed uniform, a quiet smile on her face. Applause began, soft at first, then swelling until it filled the atrium. The cleaning staff clapped the loudest, tears in their eyes. The executives followed, humbled and grateful. Daniel gestured for her to join him. Maria, when you first walked into my boardroom, I thought you were just here to polish the tables. Turns out, you were here to polish our souls. The room fell silent, emotional silence. He continued, we used to say this was my building, but now I know the truth. This is our building. Because without the people who sweep, fix, and care for it, it's just empty walls. He held up a small box. So, from all of us at Hawthorne Enterprises. He opened it to reveal a golden key, engraved with her name. Maria Lopez, keeper of the foundation. Maria blinked back tears as he handed it to her. She wasn't used to being the center of attention, and for a moment, her hands trembled. "Mr. Hawthorne," she said softly into the microphone, "when I started cleaning this building 20 years ago, people used to step around my mop bucket like it was invisible. I used to wonder if maybe I was invisible too." Her voice wavered, not from weakness, but from truth. "But I never stopped believing that what's done with care leaves a mark. And now, standing here, I see those marks everywhere. Not on the floors, but on the people." The crowd was silent, hanging on every word. "I don't need a key," she continued, holding it up, "because this building was never locked to begin with. It just needed to be opened with respect." Daniel's eyes shone with emotion. He wasn't the same man who had once dismissed her. Maria handed the key back to him gently. "Keep it, because now it's your turn to take care of what you've been given." He nodded, voice thick. "I will." That afternoon, after the ceremony, Maria walked the halls one last time. She had decided it was time to retire, not out of exhaustion but fulfillment. She wanted to leave when her story had come full circle. The staff lined up in the lobby to say goodbye. Everyone from executives to the newest custodians. Hugs, handshakes, laughter, even tears. When Daniel approached her, she smiled. "You know, I never thought I'd say this," she said, "but you turned out to be a good tenant." He laughed softly. "That's the best compliment I've ever gotten." She tilted her head. "Just remember, a clean floor isn't a sign of perfection. It's a sign that someone cared enough to make it better." He nodded, voice low. "And I promise you, that care won't end with you." That evening, as the sun dipped low, Maria stepped out of the building for the last time. She paused on the sidewalk and looked up at the towering glass structure, the same one she had once polished floor by floor. Now, her name was etched on the new lobby plaque, right beneath the words, "Greatness starts at ground level." She smiled, her reflection shining back at her from the glass. For the first time, she didn't see herself as invisible. She saw herself as part of the foundation. 1 year later, the annual company newsletter featured a new story. Hawthorne Enterprises expands nationwide with Lopez Foundation partnership. Training program for underprivileged workers to enter corporate maintenance and facility management. The article ended with a quote from Daniel Hawthorne himself. "Success isn't about owning the building. It's about honoring the people who keep its lights on." And beneath it, Maria Lopez's final words, now engraved in the company handbook. "Never underestimate the hands that hold your world steady." As the camera of life pulled back from that shining building, the sun hit the glass just right, reflecting the entire skyline like a mirror. Because when respect becomes part of the foundation, everything built on top finally stands tall.